Hi, everyone. I just wanted to quickly go over housekeeping, and I wanted you to make sure you watch My Beautiful Broken Brain, the TBI documentary, and read chapter 6, okay? And make sure I did open the assignment for, but I made it due on Friday, okay? So, what I wanted to talk about just briefly was communication counseling with adult clients and their families for whom expected progression is towards deterioration, right? So, unfortunately, we know these clients aren't going to improve, but what are some things we want to think about? What are some things we can do to help them um, cope, right? So, it's coping. Um, so in that, what I wanted you to do would be to think about what would it mean to you if you knew that you would lose your ability to communicate with others the way you can at this moment? What would be your fears? What areas of your life would be most impacted? And how would you prepare? We're going to take some time to look at that on Wednesday. Okay. These are the disorders of downward progression, mild cognitive impairment, primary progressive aphasia, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, otherwise known as ALS, and the dementias. Um, so these are all things that we will see with our clients. Um, and it is very hard for them, of course, to accept and to learn to deal with. I had a student actually who had a progressive disease, a very rare disease. I think there was only about 10 in the world with this disease. He was in a wheelchair, but making the best of life, right? Like making sure, thinking about as his communication declines, how will he be able to communicate? Are there things we can do to help him communicate? Um, Strategies. So in other words, he started out able to talk, right? So we'll use that speech, but also give him an iPad, right? So that he can use an iPad. As that ability, that motor ability goes down, maybe we need eye tracking. Maybe we need head nods, anything that is going to keep them able to share information as long as possible are things to kind of think about. And you don't want to do it like when it happens, right? Like you don't want to be like, ooh, oh my goodness, like now we have to switch to this form of communication. You want to kind of stay ahead of it. Um, so the concept of ambiguous loss is another thing because the person that the caregivers or people their family knew, even though they're physically there, mentally the person that they knew isn't there anymore. My grandmother got dementia, and she was the kindest, sweetest person on the planet. And she, when dementia was, kind of at its worst, she wasn't that person anymore. She was demanding and difficult. But it wasn't her fault, it was her brain, and kind of working with that as well, um, and acknowledging those feelings of the caregivers is also important. So, also things like knowing, I'm going to move my picture, that the Boston Children's AAC Clinic is an internationally acclaimed clinic for its work with children and adults who are non speaking. So, knowing your resources is also very important. Okay. So, for Wednesday, I want you to have read chapter 7 and watched Randy Pausch, the last lecture, before our class because, and when you're watching the last lecture, what I want you to try and think about is whether or not you can figure out why he did it. Why he's going to give you a lot of reasons in the beginning, but I want you to think about ultimately why do you think he did that and see if you can guess because he does tell you at the end his real reason for doing this lecture. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, death and dying, just briefly. And I want you to have, we're going to have some time to talk about our disability narratives. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms to share that with a partner. And then we're going to come back as a full group and talk about that as well. And I just wanted to let you know that in the following weeks, we will have Mrs. Keppel coming to visit us with her son on April 2nd. And on April 16th, we'll have Mrs. Williams coming to talk about her daughter Hope's journey.